She'd been sitting in that courtroom for 3 hours before anyone noticed she was the defendant. The bailiff kept asking when the accused would arrive. The prosecutor kept checking his watch. Even her own public defender was looking at the door. Because the woman sitting quietly in the gallery, hands folded, gray cardigan buttoned to her throat, looked like someone's grandmother waiting for her grandson's hearing. Not like someone on trial for assaulting a decorated army colonel. But she was. And when the judge finally realized and asked her to approach the bench, she stood with a posture that made the veterans in the room straighten unconsciously. Because that wasn't the stance of a frightened old woman. That was the stance of someone who'd stood at attention in front of generals. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If this story resonates with you, please consider subscribing for more untold military stories. Municipal Court, Arlington, Virginia. The building was newer than most courthouses, all glass and steel instead of old brick and marble. But the people inside operated the same way courthouses had for 100 years. Following procedure. Processing cases. Rarely looking up from their paperwork. Case number 2024, CR 8847. Commonwealth vs. Claire Reeves. Assault and battery of a military officer. The clerk called the case at 0900 hours. The prosecutor stood, straightening his tie. The public defender stood, gathering her notes. The judge looked at the empty defense table and frowned. "Where's the defendant?" she asked. The bailiff scanned the courtroom. "Not here yet, Your Honor." Was she notified of today's hearing? The clerk checked her computer. "Yes, ma'am. Certified mail, signed for last Tuesday." The judge sighed, already reaching for her gavel to issue a bench warrant. That's when a soft voice came from the gallery. "I'm here, Your Honor." Everyone turned. An elderly woman in the third row raised her hand slightly, like a student asking permission to speak. She was small, maybe 5'3". Gray hair pulled back in a simple bun. Wire-rimmed glasses. A cardigan that had seen better days over a plain blouse and slacks. She looked exactly like someone's grandmother. The kind who baked cookies and volunteered at church. The judge blinked. "I'm sorry, ma'am. Are you waiting for someone else's case?" "No, Your Honor. I'm Claire Reeves. I'm the defendant." A confused silence filled the courtroom. The bailiff walked toward her, uncertain. The prosecutor leaned toward his assistant and whispered something that sounded like, "That can't be right." The public defender, a young woman named Martinez who'd been assigned to the case that morning, stared at her client for the first time. She'd reviewed the file on the drive over. Assault. Battery. Victim, Colonel Marcus Brennan, Army Special Forces, decorated veteran. Accused, Claire Reeves, age 68, no prior criminal record. Martinez had assumed she'd be defending a man. The name Claire could go either way, and nothing in the sparse file suggested otherwise. Now, looking at the elderly woman standing patiently in the gallery, she felt completely unprepared. "Ms. Reeves," the judge said slowly, "you're being charged with assault and battery of a military officer. Do you understand the charges?" "Yes, Your Honor." "And you've been sitting in the gallery this entire time?" "Yes, ma'am. I wasn't sure where I was supposed to sit. Nobody told me." The judge glanced at the bailiff, who looked equally confused. "Well, you're supposed to sit at the defense table with your attorney. Please come forward." Claire Reeves gathered a small purse from the seat beside her and walked down the aisle. Her steps were measured, even. Not the shuffle of an elderly woman. Not the hesitation of someone afraid. Just steady, purposeful movement. When she passed the row where 3 veterans sat watching, all 3 straightened slightly. They didn't know why. Something about her carriage. Something old and military that they recognized on an instinct level. She sat beside Martinez at the defense table. Up close, the public defender noticed things she'd missed from across the room. The way Claire's hands, though aged, showed no tremor when she placed her purse down. The small scar above her left eyebrow. The way she naturally positioned herself with her back never fully to the door. "Ms. Reeves," Martinez whispered, "why didn't you tell someone you were here?" "I did. I told the bailiff when I arrived. He said to have a seat and wait. He thought you meant you were waiting for someone else's case." "Oh." Claire's expression didn't change. "I see." The prosecutor stood. "Your Honor, the Commonwealth is ready to proceed." "Ms. Martinez, is the defense ready?" Martinez hadn't even spoken to her client yet. She glanced at Claire, who nodded once. "Yes, Your Honor." "Very well. Mr. Prosecutor, call your first witness." The Commonwealth calls Colonel Marcus Brennan. The courtroom doors opened, and a man in his early 50s entered wearing his army dress uniform. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of presence that filled a room. Medals covered his chest. His bearing screamed authority and competence. He walked past the defense table without glancing at Claire. Why would he? She was just an old woman. Invisible. He was sworn in and took the stand. The prosecutor began. "Colonel Brennan, can you tell the court what happened on the evening of March 14th? Brennan's voice was strong, confident. "I was attending a military history lecture at the Virginia War Memorial. During the reception afterward, I was speaking with several colleagues when the defendant approached me." "And what did she say?" "She accused me of stolen valor. Claimed I'd taken credit for missions I didn't participate in. Specifically, she mentioned Operation Iron Fist in Fallujah, 2004. How did you respond?" "I told her she was mistaken. I served in Fallujah during that time and received commendation for my actions during Iron Fist. I showed her my service record on my phone." "And then what happened?" Brennan shifted slightly. "She became agitated. Started saying I was lying, that I knew the truth. When I tried to walk away, she grabbed my arm. When I pulled back, she struck me across the face." Murmurs spread through the courtroom. The judge banged her gavel once. "Did you require medical attention?" the prosecutor asked. "No. It wasn't a hard blow. But it was assault nonetheless. And given her accusations and erratic behavior, I felt it necessary to press charges." "Thank you, Colonel. No further questions." The judge looked at Martinez. "Cross-examination." Martinez stood slowly. She had nothing. No defense strategy. No witnesses. Just an elderly client who'd been sitting invisible in the gallery and a decorated colonel with a chest full of medals. "Colonel Brennan," she began, trying to buy time, "you said my client accused you of stolen valor. Had you ever met her before?" "No." "Do you know why she would make such an accusation?" "I assume she was confused. Perhaps suffering from dementia. Many elderly people fixate on conspiracy theories about the military." "Objection," Martinez said reflexively. "Speculation about my client's mental health." "Sustained," the judge said. "The jury will disregard that last statement." But the damage was done. Everyone in the courtroom was now looking at Claire Reeves and seeing exactly what Brennan suggested. A confused old woman. Maybe senile. Definitely not a threat. Claire sat perfectly still, hands folded, face expressionless. She didn't look upset. She didn't look anything. Just, patient. Martinez had no more questions. She sat down, already planning how to negotiate a plea deal. The prosecutor called 2 more witnesses. Both attendees of the lecture who'd seen the confrontation. Both described Claire as aggressive and unstable. Neither had heard what she actually said to Brennan. They just saw an old woman getting physical with a decorated officer. By noon, the prosecution rested. The judge called for lunch recess. In a small conference room, Martinez tried to talk to her client. Ms. Reeves, I have to be honest with you. This isn't going well. The prosecutor is offering a plea deal. Assault charges dropped to simple battery. Probation, anger management classes, and a formal apology to Colonel Brennan. Claire looked at her steadily. And if I don't accept? Then we go to trial. And I have to tell you, we have no defense. 3 witnesses, all respectable, all saying you assaulted a decorated officer. Unless you can explain why you approached him, why you made those accusations. I can explain, Claire said quietly. Then please, tell me. Because right now, you look like a crazy old woman. Martinez hesitated, then nodded. Yes. Claire smiled faintly. It wasn't bitter. Just tired. I know. That's what I was counting on. I don't understand. I needed him to press charges. I needed to get him into a courtroom where he'd have to testify under oath. Because there's someone coming. Someone who was there in Fallujah. Someone who knows the truth about Operation Iron Fist. Who? Claire checked her watch. He should be arriving right about now. At 1 p.m., court reconvened. The gallery had filled up during lunch. Word had spread on social media about the crazy grandmother who'd assaulted a war hero. A few reporters had shown up, sensing a quirky human interest story. The defense was called to present its case. Martinez stood, having nothing to present. Your Honor, the defense calls. The courtroom doors opened. A man in military dress uniform entered. Not just any uniform. Marine Corps dress blues. And on his collar, 3 silver stars. Lieutenant General Robert Hayes. Deputy Commandant of the Marine Corps. The effect was immediate. Everyone stood. Not because protocol required it, but because of pure instinct. When a 3-star general enters a room, you stand. The judge, stunned, rose from her bench. General Hayes. Your Honor, he said, his voice carrying authority that filled every corner of the room. I apologize for the interruption. But I've come to testify in this case. The prosecutor shot to his feet. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. The witness list was finalized last week. The defense can't just. I'm not here for the defense, General Hayes interrupted. I'm here for the truth. He walked down the aisle, and for the first time since entering the courtroom, he looked at Claire Reeves. Their eyes met. She nodded once, barely perceptible. He returned it. Then he turned to Colonel Brennan, still sitting in the front row. Brennan had gone pale. The judge, still standing, cleared her throat. General, with all due respect, this is a civilian court. We have procedures. I understand, Your Honor. And I'm prepared to be sworn in and testify properly. But first, I need to tell you who that woman is. He pointed to Claire. Because if this court convicts her without knowing the truth, it will be a grave injustice. The judge slowly sat down. Proceed. General Hayes faced the courtroom. In 2004, I was a captain deployed to Fallujah during Operation Iron Fist. On November 12, my unit was pinned down in a building that was being overrun by enemy forces. We had multiple casualties. No air support. No way out. We were about to be overwhelmed. He paused, his jaw tight with the memory. And then the shooting stopped. Not our shooting. Theirs. Someone was taking them out with precision fire. 1 shot, 1 kill. 12 confirmed enemy kills in under 4 minutes. From impossible angles. At impossible distances. The courtroom was dead silent. I called for identification. Who was covering us? The radio crackled, and a voice came through. Calm. Professional. Viper 3. You're clear to extract. Move now. General Hayes looked at Claire again. That voice saved 43 Marines that day. Including me. The shot that saved us, the one that took out the enemy commander at 847 yards in urban terrain with crosswind, was the most incredible piece of marksmanship I've ever witnessed. And I've witnessed a lot. Colonel Brennan shifted uncomfortably in his seat. After the battle, Hayes continued, I tried to find Viper 3. To thank them. To recommend them for commendation. But I was told the operator had been extracted immediately for another mission. Classified. I never got a name. Never saw a face. Just heard that voice and saw the results. He reached into his uniform and pulled out a piece of paper. Last week, I received an email. From a friend who'd seen social media posts about this case. He sent me a video. Someone had recorded the altercation at the war memorial on their phone. Hayes looked at the judge. Your Honor, may I play it? She nodded, still too stunned to speak. The bailiff set up a laptop. The video played on the courtroom screen. It showed Claire approaching Colonel Brennan. The audio was clear. Claire's voice, Colonel Brennan. I was at Fallujah. Operation Iron Fist. I know you weren't there. Brennan's voice, you're mistaken, ma'am. Claire's voice, quieter but firm, I was Viper 3. I made those shots. You took credit for my confirmed kills. You received a silver star for my actions. Brennan's voice, angry now, you're a crazy old woman. Security. The video cut off as the altercation began. General Hayes turned off the laptop. When I heard that voice, that call sign, I knew. Viper 3 was real. And she was here. In this courtroom. He walked directly to Claire. Gunnery Sergeant Claire Reeves. First female Marine Scout sniper. 19 confirmed kills in Iraq. 3 Bronze Stars. 1 Silver Star. And 1 Navy Cross that stayed classified for 15 years because her missions were too sensitive to acknowledge. Claire remained seated, but her eyes had filled with tears. Hayes continued, now addressing the judge. Colonel Brennan was in Fallujah in 2004. But he was a logistics officer, nowhere near Iron Fist. After the battle, when reports were being filed, there was confusion about who'd provided the covering fire. Somehow, Brennan's name ended up on the after-action report. He received commendation for actions he didn't perform. Gunnery Sergeant Reeves's actions, meanwhile, stayed classified. The general's voice grew harder. For 20 years, this man has worn medals he didn't earn. Given speeches about valor he didn't show. Built a career on a lie. And Gunnery Sergeant Reeves stayed silent. Because her missions were classified. Because she was ordered not to reveal her role. Because she put the mission above her own recognition. He turned back to Claire. Until now. Until she couldn't stay silent anymore. General Hayes walked to the witness stand. Your Honor, I'm ready to testify under oath. Everything I've said is documented. I have the classified after-action reports. I have testimony from the Marines who were there. And I have the truth. The judge looked at Colonel Brennan. Colonel, do you wish to respond? Brennan stood slowly. His face had lost all color. He opened his mouth, but no words came. Finally, he whispered, I'd like to request a recess to consult with counsel. Denied, the judge said coldly. You've been testifying under oath all morning. So I'll ask you directly, were you in the building during Operation Iron Fist on November 12, 2004? Silence. Colonel Brennan, answer the question. No, Your Honor. Did you provide covering fire that saved Captain Hayes's unit? No. Did you knowingly accept commendation for actions you didn't perform? His voice was barely audible. Yes. The courtroom erupted, the judge banged her gavel repeatedly, but the noise continued. Reporters were already on their phones. The veterans in the gallery were on their feet. One of them was shouting at Brennan. When order finally restored, the judge spoke with barely controlled fury. "Mr. Prosecutor, do you wish to continue this case?" The prosecutor looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him. "No, Your Honor. The Commonwealth moves to dismiss all charges against Ms. Reeves." Motion granted. All charges dismissed. The gavel came down. "Furthermore, I'm referring this matter to military authorities for investigation of Colonel Brennan's conduct. Bailiff, please escort the colonel from my courtroom." Brennan stood on shaking legs. As he passed Claire's table, he stopped. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Claire looked up at him. "You're not sorry you did it. You're sorry you got caught." He had no response. He left escorted by the bailiff, who was no longer treating him with deference. General Hayes approached the defense table. Claire stood, and for a moment, they just looked at each other. Two Marines, separated by rank and time, connected by a moment 20 years ago when one saved the other's life. "Gunny," Hayes said quietly. "Sir," she replied. "Why didn't you come forward sooner? Why didn't you tell someone?" Claire's voice was steady, but tired. "I tried, sir. 3 times in the first 5 years. Filed proper reports through chain of command. But my missions were classified at a level above most people's clearance. The paperwork disappeared into the bureaucracy. And Brennan's story was already accepted as truth. A logistics officer becoming a hero made a better story than a female sniper nobody wanted to acknowledge existed." "Jesus," Hayes breathed. "Eventually, I stopped trying. Finished my service. Got out. Tried to build a civilian life. But 6 months ago, I saw him on television. Giving a speech at a military fundraiser. Wearing that silver star. Telling his story about Fallujah. And I realized he was profiting from it. Book deals. Speaking engagements. Consulting contracts. All built on my actions. So you confronted him." "I tried to do it quietly first. Sent him a private message through his website. Told him I knew the truth. Asked him to come clean voluntarily. He blocked me. So I went public. Found out when his next appearance would be. Showed up. Confronted him where people could see." Hayes nodded slowly. "You knew he'd press charges." "I hoped he would. Because I knew you were still active duty. I knew if this went to court, eventually word would reach you. And you'd remember Viper 3. She smiled faintly. "I just had to be patient. 20 years of patience. I learned patience in the Corps, sir." Hayes turned to the judge. "Your Honor, with your permission, I have one more thing to say." "Go ahead, General." He addressed the courtroom. "For 20 years, the Marine Corps failed Gunnery Sergeant Reeves. We let her service be erased. We let a lie become accepted truth. That ends today. I'm personally ensuring that her record is corrected, her commendations properly filed, and her story told. What she did in Fallujah deserves to be remembered. And I'm going to make sure it is." Applause broke out in the gallery. The veterans who'd been watching stood and saluted. Claire, uncomfortable with the attention, gave a small nod. Martinez, the public defender who thought she was representing a confused old woman, stepped forward. "Ms. Reeves, I owe you an apology. I didn't believe." "It's all right," Claire interrupted gently. "You weren't supposed to believe. Nobody was. That's what made it work." After the courtroom cleared, General Hayes walked with Claire to the courthouse steps. The afternoon sun was bright. Reporters were waiting, but Hayes's security detail kept them back. "What will you do now?" he asked. Claire shrugged. "Go home. Feed my cat. Maybe finally write that book people keep saying I should write." "You should. People need to hear your story. Not just about Fallujah. About all of it. About being invisible. About being overlooked. About how the people we dismiss as just someone's grandmother might be the most dangerous person in the room. She smiled. I like being underestimated. It's been useful. I bet. Hayes hesitated, then said, there's a ceremony next month. Marine Corps birthday. I'd like you to attend as my guest. I'd like to present you with proper recognition for your service. Will there be speeches? Several. Will I have to make one? Only if you want to. Claire considered this. Can I think about it? Take all the time you need, Gunny. They shook hands. His grip was firm, respectful. Hers was equally firm, despite her age. As General Hayes walked away, one reporter broke through security. Ms. Reeves. What do you want people to know about your story? Claire looked at the young woman. Then at the cameras. Then at the courthouse behind her. I want people to know that the most dangerous warriors aren't always the ones wearing uniforms covered in medals. Sometimes they're wearing cardigans. And they're sitting quietly in the back row. Watching. Waiting. Being underestimated. She smiled. We're everywhere. We've always been everywhere. You just haven't been looking. And with that, Gunnery Sergeant Claire Reeves, first female Marine Scout sniper, holder of the Navy Cross, and the invisible woman who'd waited 20 years for justice, walked down the courthouse steps and disappeared into the crowd. Just like she'd always done, sometimes the most powerful people in the room are the ones nobody notices. The quiet ones. The overlooked ones. The ones dismissed as too old, too small, too insignificant to matter. Claire Reeves taught us that invisibility can be a weapon. That patience can outlast lies. And that justice, even when delayed, can still be served. She didn't need recognition to know her worth. She'd already proven it where it mattered. But when the time came to fight for the truth, she fought with the same precision, the same discipline, and the same deadly patience that once saved 43 Marines in Fallujah. If this story moved you, please subscribe for more untold military stories. Like, comment your thoughts, and enable notifications so you never miss a mission. Thank you for watching, and remember, never underestimate the grandmother in the cardigan. She might just be a warrior in disguise.